How to manifest huge sums of money in 2 days or less. Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that the money you have been praying for, working for, stressing over, and waiting on is not actually far away from you? What if the delay is not in the economy, not in your job, not in your opportunities, but in a single shift of belief? Tonight, I want to challenge the way you see wealth, time, and possibility itself. We have been conditioned to believe that large sums of money require long years of struggle. We are taught that financial breakthroughs come slowly, painfully, and only after endless sacrifice. We are told to be realistic, to lower expectations, to wait our turn. But what if reality is far more flexible than we've been led to believe? What if money does not move according to effort alone, but according to consciousness? You see, every breakthrough in history began with someone who refused to accept the limits placed upon them, someone who dared to believe in results before evidence appeared, someone who understood that the external world is not the master, it is the mirror. And if the world is a mirror, then the image we see must reflect something deeper within us. Most people chase money from a state of lack. They say, I need more, they say, I don't have enough. And without realizing it, they reinforce the very condition they wish to escape. Because when your dominant thought is lack, your dominant experience will echo lack. The mind is powerful beyond measure. It does not simply observe reality, it participates in creating it. Tonight, we are not here to talk about wishful thinking. We are not here to deny hard work or practical action. We are here to talk about alignment, about identity, about the inner shift that changes the outer world. Because when you change who you believe you are, you change what you allow yourself to receive. Imagine for a moment what would happen if you truly believed that receiving a huge sum of money in 2 days was possible. Not hoped, not wished, believed. Feel the difference between wishing for something and expecting it. Wishing carries doubt, expectation carries certainty, and certainty moves mountains. The truth is, time is often a story we tell ourselves. We assume that big results must take big time, but breakthroughs rarely follow a straight line. Sometimes they arrive suddenly, unexpectedly, in ways you never could have planned. And when they do, people call them luck, coincidence, or miracle. But perhaps they are simply the result of a mind that finally aligned with possibility. Ladies and gentlemen, the question is not whether abundance exists. The question is whether you are willing to see yourself as someone who can receive it, quickly, confidently, and without apology. Because the moment you shift from chasing money to embodying wealth, everything begins to change. Money responds to identity, not effort. From the time you were young, you were taught a simple formula: work harder, earn more, struggle longer, succeed later. Effort equals reward. And while effort has its place in the physical world, it is not the true magnet of wealth. Because if effort alone created riches, the hardest working people on earth would be the wealthiest. Yet that is rarely the case. Money does not respond to effort, it responds to identity. You do not attract what you want, you attract who you believe you are. If deep within you see yourself as someone who barely gets by, life will faithfully reflect that self image. You may work overtime, you may hustle endlessly, you may try every strategy, but if your identity is rooted in limitation, your results will circle back to limitation. Identity is the silent command behind every outcome. Think about it. Two people can take the same action and receive completely different results. One launches a business expecting success, the other launches fearing failure. The first sees opportunity everywhere, the second sees obstacles everywhere. Same effort, different identity, different outcome. Your subconscious mind is loyal to who you think you are. If you see yourself as wealthy, capable, and worthy of large sums of money, your mind will search for evidence to support that belief. If you see yourself as unlucky or financially challenged, it will search for proof of that instead. The world rearranges itself around your self-concept. This is why some people receive sudden financial breakthroughs while others remain stuck in cycles. It is not about intelligence, it is not about background, it is not even about connections. It is about the story they have accepted about themselves. If you identify as someone who struggles, struggle will feel familiar. And the mind loves what is familiar, even if it is painful. But when you shift your identity, everything shifts. Instead of saying, I am trying to become wealthy, you say, I am a wealthy person learning to express it. You hear the difference. One statement puts wealth in the future, the other claims it in the present. Money flows towards certainty. If you walk into a room unsure of your value, people sense it. If you negotiate from desperation, it shows. But when you know your worth internally, your posture changes, your tone changes, your decisions change, and those subtle shifts produce tangible results. The wealthy identity is not loud or arrogant. It is calm, it is secure, it does not beg, it expects, and expectation is powerful. When you expect money to move in your direction, you stop chasing it. You begin aligning with it. You become selective instead of desperate, strategic instead of reactive, confident instead of anxious. Let me be clear, this is not about pretending, it is about deciding. Identity is a decision repeated consistently until it feels natural. If you have spent years identifying as someone who struggles financially, that identity may feel deeply ingrained, but it was learned, and what is learned can be unlearned. Start asking yourself different questions. How would a wealthy version of me think today? How would they respond to this challenge? Would they panic over this spill? Would they hesitate to invest in themselves? You are not waiting for money to change your identity. You are changing your identity so money can find you. Large sums of money do not intimidate someone who sees themselves as the source of value. They understand that money is simply a byproduct of who they are. When you identify as the source, you stop seeing money as something outside of you. You realize it flows through ideas, decisions, creativity, and boldness. And those qualities expand when your identity expands. Many people unknowingly repel wealth because they believe it is too much, too big, too fast, too unrealistic. But those limits are internal, not external. If you believe receiving a huge sum in 2 days is impossible, your mind will filter out opportunities that contradict that belief. You may miss an email, ignore an idea, delay an action, not because the opportunity wasn't there, but because it did not match your identity. Your identity determines what you notice, and what you notice determines what you act on. The shift begins internally. Close your eyes and imagine seeing yourself as financially powerful. Not someday, now. Feel the stability, the confidence, the freedom. Notice how your breathing changes. Notice how your shoulders relax. That feeling is not fantasy, it is a preview of a new identity. The more you visit that state mentally, the more natural it becomes. And once it becomes natural, your behavior aligns automatically. You make bolder decisions. You speak with authority. You pursue larger opportunities, not because you are forcing it, but because it matches who you believe you are. Effort without identity alignment leads to burnout. Identity alignment reduces effort. When you identify as someone who attracts wealth easily, you stop overcompensating. You stop overworking from fear. You begin working from clarity and confidence. And that shift alone can change your financial reality faster than years of struggle. There are individuals who receive massive financial opportunities seemingly overnight. People call them lucky, but what they do not see is the internal shift that happened first. The moment they decided, I am no longer the person who settles, that decision rewrote their identity, and identity is destiny. You must stop measuring yourself by your current bank balance. Your bank balance is a snapshot of past beliefs. It is not a prediction of your future. If you change the belief, the balance will follow. Money does not argue with self concept. If you see yourself as worthy of large sums, money must comply. If you see yourself as undeserving, money will slip away to maintain that story. So ask yourself honestly, who have I been identifying as? The struggler, the survivor, the one who almost makes it, or the creator, the receiver, the one for whom wealth is natural? The moment you decide to shift, something powerful happens. You stop trying to get money and start embodying wealth. You stop waiting for validation and start operating from inner authority. And when you operate from inner authority, the external world responds. Money does not chase effort, it follows identity. Change who you believe you are, and you change what you allow yourself to receive. Time is a psychological barrier. You've been trained to worship time. You measure success by years. You measure progress by months. You measure possibility by how long something should take. And without realizing it, you have placed time on a throne as if it has authority over your destiny. But time is not a creator, it is a container. And most of the limits you experience around money are not financial limits, they are time beliefs. When you say it will take years to make that kind of money, you are not stating a fact. You are declaring an assumption, and your subconscious mind keeps that assumption as instruction. It begins to organize your reality in a way that matches that timeline. The truth is, manifestation happens instantly in imagination. The moment you vividly imagine receiving a huge sum of money, the experience exists within you, emotionally, mentally, energetically. The only thing that delays its physical appearance is doubt, not time. Time is simply the space between belief and resistance. When resistance drops, time collapses. Think about breakthroughs you've witnessed in your life, moments where everything changed suddenly. An unexpected job offer, a surprise opportunity, a financial gift. In those moments, it did not feel gradual, it felt immediate, yet the potential for that event may have existed long before it appeared. What changed? Your alignments changed. You stopped blocking it. You see, we often believe that large sums of money require a long process because that belief feels logical. But logic is shaped by past experience. And if your past experience has been slow financial growth, your mind assumes that is the only pattern available. But patterns are not permanent, they are programmable. When you remove the belief that something must take time, you open the door for acceleration. Ask yourself, why do I believe it has to take 2 years instead of 2 days? Who taught me that rule? Where is it written that abundance must arrive slowly? It is not written anywhere except in collective conditioning. Society glorifies the long struggle, the 10-year journey, the endless grind. And while persistence has value, struggle is not a requirement for wealth. Speed does not invalidate success. Your subconscious does know measure time the way your conscious mind does. It responds to intensity of belief. If you believe something is possible now, not eventually, not someday, but now, your internal state shifts immediately. And that shift begins rearranging circumstances. Time feels long when you are waiting, but when you expect, time feels irrelevant. Waiting implies uncertainty. Expectation implies inevitability. When you wait for money, you check the clock. You monitor your bank account. You calculate. You worry. And every moment of worry reinforces the belief that it is not here yet. But when you expect money, you relax. You move forward confidently. You make decisions from assurance rather than anxiety. And that state of assurance reduces resistance. 2 days is not a magical number, it is simply a challenge to your belief system. Can you accept that something massive could happen quickly? Or does that idea create tension in your body? Notice your reaction carefully, because your reaction reveals your conditioning. If someone told you that tomorrow you would receive a huge financial breakthrough, would you feel excitement or skepticism? Would you feel calm, certainty, or immediate doubt? Your first emotional response tells you how much you trust the possibility of speed. Here is the deeper truth. Reality does not unfold linearly, it unfolds in alignment. When alignment is weak, progress feels slow. When alignment is strong, results appear sudden. Think of water behind a dam. Pressure builds invisibly for a long time. Then one day, the barrier breaks and everything rushes forward at once. To an outside observer, it looks instant. But internally, momentum had been built in. G. Your job is not to force time to move faster. Your job is to remove the dam of doubt. Doubt stretches time. Faith compresses it. When you say it's possible, but it will take a while, you are unconsciously choosing delay. When you say it can happen at any moment, you are allowing immediacy. The mind loves predictability, and sudden wealth feels unpredictable to someone who has not normalized it internally. So the mind delays it to protect familiarity, But you can retrain familiarity, begin imagining fast success as normal, see quick breakthroughs as natural. Tell yourself stories of acceleration instead of delay. Instead of saying, big money takes big time, say, big shifts can happen overnight. Instead of saying, I have to build this slowly, say, I am open to rapid expansion. Your language shapes your expectations, and your expectations shape your experience. The present moment is powerful because it is the only moment creation happens. You cannot manifest in the past, you cannot manifest in the future. You manifest now. So when you imagine receiving a large sum of money, do not push it into the future with phrases like soon or one day. Bring it into now. Feel the relief now. Feel the gratitude now. Feel the stability now. When your nervous system becomes comfortable with wealth in the present moment, the physical world has less resistance to mirror it. Speed is uncomfortable only when you are unprepared internally. But preparation is not about saving more or working harder. It is about believing deeper. If you knew without question that money could arrive within 48 hours, how would you feel today? Would you worry about small expense? Yes? Would you shrink your vision? Or would you move with confidence? That confidence is the bridge. When you embody the emotional state of already having received, you eliminate psychological time. And when psychological time disappears, physical time shortens. Miracles are simply events that bypass expected timelines. They feel extraordinary because they break the mental rule of this should take longer. But what if that rule was never necessary? The only reason something appears to take long is because you accepted that duration. Release the timeline, hold the vision, trust the immediacy of imagination. The moment you stop measuring progress by the clock and start measuring it by certainty, everything changes because certainty is timeless. And when you stand in timeless certainty, reality moves faster than you ever thought possible. Emotional certainty is the secret currency. Money is not first attracted by action, it is not first attracted by strategy, it is attracted by emotional certainty. You can say affirmations all day long. You can visualize stacks of cash. You can write goals in a journal. But if underneath all of that there is anxiety, doubt, or desperation, those emotions speak louder than your words. Emotion is the language of the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind is the gateway through which all manifestations pass. When you think about receiving a huge sum of money, what do you feel? Be honest. Do you feel calm confidence, or do you feel tension in your chest? Do you feel ease, or do you feel urgency? Urgency repels, certainty attracts. Desperation says, I don't have it. Certainty says, it's already handled. The difference between those two emotional states determines how quickly something manifests. Emotional certainty is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is steady, it is grounded. It feels like knowing the sun will rise tomorrow. You don't beg the sun to rise, you don't worry if it will forget, you expect it. That is how you must feel about your wealth. When you are emotionally certain, you are no longer trying to convince yourself. You are no longer fighting disbelief. You are resting in the assumption that it is done. Most people sabotage their manifestations because they check too often. They imagine wealth for 5 minutes and then spend the next 5 hours worrying about bills. They feel inspired briefly and then scroll through news that reinforces lack. They plant the seed and then dig it up with fear. Emotional consistency is power. If you want to manifest huge sums of money in 2 days or less, your emotional state must align with someone who already has financial stability. And someone who already has financial stability does not panic over temporary appearances. They do not react emotionally to every number they see. They respond from inner security. You must train your nervous system to feel safe with abundance. This is important because if wealth feels overwhelming, your system will unconsciously push it away. Many people say they want large sums of money, but internally they associate wealth with pressure, responsibility, or loss. So when an opportunity arises, they hesitate, they delay, they question, not because they are incapable, but because they are emotionally unprepared. Emotional certainty means you have normalized success. It means when you imagine receiving a huge deposit, your body does not tense up. Your heart rate does not spike with disbelief. Instead, you feel relief, gratitude, calm. Practice this deliberately. Close your eyes and imagine checking your bank account. See a number that exceeds your expectations. Now pause. Instead of reacting with shock, breathe deeply. Relax your shoulders. Smile gently. Whisper, of course. Train yourself to respond calmly to abundance because the body must become familiar with the feeling before the world reflects it. Think about it this way: your emotions are a signal, they broadcast what you believe to be true. If your dominant emotion is worry, you are broadcasting instability. If your dominant emotion is certainty, you are broadcasting completion. And the world responds to the broadcast. Emotional certainty is the secret currency because it holds more power than money itself. When you possess it, opportunities gravitate toward you, conversations shift, ideas flow. You begin to notice doors that were always there but previously invisible. Have you ever noticed how confident people seem to attract support easily? Investors believe in them, clients trust them, partners collaborate with them. It is not magic, it is emotional congruence. People respond to certainty, life responds to certainty. If you speak about your financial goals with hesitation, others feel that hesitation. If you carry yourself with inner assurance, even before the money arrives, the environment mirrors that confidence. This is why feeling wealthy now is more important than waiting to feel wealthy later. Do not postpone your emotional state. Many people say, I'll relax when the money comes. Be cute that keeps relaxation in the future. And the future never arrives as long as you keep pushing it forward. Instead, say, I relax now because it is already unfolding. Relaxation is not passivity, it is trust. Trust eliminates resistance. Resistance slows manifestation. You must also guard your emotional environment. What you watch, what you listen to, who you speak with, all of it influences your emotional baseline. If you constantly expose yourself to fear based narratives about the economy, scarcity, and instability, maintaining certainty becomes difficult. Protect your emotional state like an asset because it is. Gratitude is one of the fastest ways to stabilize emotional certainty. Not forced gratitude, but genuine appreciation. When you focus on what is already working in your life, your nervous system shifts into abundance mode. You begin to feel supported rather than threatened. From that state, money feels like a natural extension, not a rescue mission. Understand this clearly. You do not manifest what you want most, you manifest what you feel most consistently. If fear dominates, fear materializes. If certainty dominates, success materializes. So when doubt arises, and it will, do not fight it aggressively. Observe it, replace it gently, return to the feeling of completion. Say internally, it is done. I trust the process. Then move forward with your day as someone who knows the power of emotional certainty is that it eliminates the need to chase. When you are certain, you act from inspiration instead of anxiety. And inspired action is efficient. It leads you directly to aligned opportunities, an unexpected idea, a conversation at the right time, a message that changes everything. These moments do not feel forced, they feel natural, and that naturalness is the evidence of alignment. Remember, money is not responding to your words, it is responding to your emotional state. When your emotions declare, I am secure, I am supported, I am ready, reality reorganizes to match that declaration. Certainty collapses delay. Calm expectation accelerates results. And when your heart is steady, your mind is clear, and your emotions are aligned with wealth, the arrival of large sums of money no longer feels impossible. It feels inevitable. Detach from the how. One of the greatest obstacles to manifesting huge sums of money quickly is the obsession with how it will happen. The mind wants a blueprint, it wants a step by step breakdown. It wants guarantees, timelines, and predictable outcomes. But manifestation does not respond to control, it responds to trust. The moment you begin asking, how will this come? Who will send it? What exact method will produce it? You narrow infinite possibilities down to a handful of logical options, and logic is limited by past experience. If you only allow money to come through the channels you already know, you block the channels you have not yet imagined. Detachment from the how is freedom. It does not mean you refuse action, it means you release micromanagement. You stop trying to force the universe to use a specific door when there are thousands available. Think about this. If you needed a large sum of money within 2 days, your conscious mind might calculate the usual methods: salary, business profit, selling something, borrowing. But what if the solution lies, outside your current awareness? What if an unexpected refund, a forgotten investment, a new partnership, or a spontaneous opportunity is already aligning? When you obsess over how, you unconsciously reject anything that does not match your expectation. Control is disguised fear. The need to know how something will happen often comes from the belief that if you do not control it, it will not happen. But control signals doubt. It says, I don't trust the process unless I can see every step. Trust says, I don't need to see it. I know it's unfolding. There is a powerful difference between planning and forcing. Planning is intentional, forcing is anxious. When you detach from the how, you move from anxiety to expectancy. Imagine placing an online order. Once you confirm the purchase, you do not call the warehouse every hour asking how they packed it, which truck is carrying it, which road the truck is using. You trust the system. You track it calmly. You expect delivery. Manifestation works similarly. You place the order through imagination and emotional certainty. Once placed, your job is not to chase the delivery truck. Your job is to prepare to receive. The need to control how often delays results because it creates resistance. Resistance says, this must happen my way. But your way is based on limited perspective. Infinite intelligence sees what you cannot. It knows which conversation to spark, which event to rearrange, which idea to place in your mind at the perfect moment. But if you are too busy dictating the route, you may ignore the nudge. Detachment also protects your emotional state. When you fixate on a specific method and it does not move immediately, doubt creeps in. You assume it is not working. But perhaps the method was never meant to be the vehicle. You must trust outcomes more than methods. Let me say that again. Trust the outcome more than the method. If your intention is clear, a huge sum of money within 2 days, then stay loyal to the intention, not the strategy. Strategies can shift, outcomes remain. There is a subtle confidence in someone who understands this. They take action, yes, they apply, call, post, create, but they are not attached to any single action being the answer. They know that one of their moves, or even something completely unrelated, can unlock the flow. This openness creates space, and space allows miracles. When you detach from the how, you also reduce pressure. Pressure suffocates creativity, but ease invites ideas. Some of the most profitable insights arrive in relaxed states, in the shower, during a walk, in conversation. They do not arrive when you are staring at your bank account in panic. Relaxation is strategic, it keeps you receptive. Now, detachment does not mean passivity, it means inspired action instead of desperate action. Desperate action says, I must make this work. Inspired action says, this feels aligned. The difference is emotional. When you detach, you become sensitive to intuitive nudges. You might feel guided to contact someone you haven't spoken to in months, to revisit a project you abandoned, to explore an idea that suddenly feels exciting. These impulses often look small at first, but they can open doors that logic would never predict. If you are clinging to a specific path, you might ignore the nudge because it doesn't make sense. But manifestation is not limited to what makes sense. It operates through alignment, not predictability. Another reason detachment is powerful is because it removes fear of failure. When you are not attached to one method, rejection does not shake you. A no simply means this wasn't the door. You remain steady, and steadiness keeps your vibration consistent. Attachment creates emotional highs and lows. Detachment creates stability. Stability keeps you aligned with your intention. Think of it like planting a seed. You do not dig it up daily to check how it is growing. You water it, you provide sunlight, and you trust the process beneath the surface. The how is the underground process. You cannot see it fully. You are not meant to manage every detail. Your role is belief, alignment, openness. And here is something crucial. Sometimes the how involves becoming someone new. Maybe the large sum of money arrives through a bold decision you have been postponing. Maybe it arrives through raising your standards. Maybe it requires you to say no to something comfortable so you can say yes to something expansive. If you are too focused on one narrow path, you may resist the transformation required. Detachment makes you flexible. Flexibility accelerates manifestation. S. A within yourself. I don't need to know how. I trust that it's happening. Feel the relief in those words. Feel the release of pressure. The universe is not confused about how to deliver abundance, but it responds to your openness. When you release the need to control the path, you align with infinite roots, and infinite roots dramatically increase speed. You do not need to map every step. You need to hold the vision clearly and allow the bridge to build itself. Because when you truly detach from the how, you stop blocking the wow. Assume it's already done. There is a state of mind where manifestation becomes effortless, a state where you are no longer hoping, wishing, or striving, a state where you move through life with quiet confidence because internally the decision has already been made. That state is assumption. To assume something is already done is to mentally accept it as fact before physical evidence appears. It is not pretending, it is not delusion. It is choosing which reality you give authority to, the inner one or the outer one. Most people live from the outside in. They look at their bank account and decide how to feel. They examine circumstances and then determine their belief. But the Creator lives from the inside out. They decide first and allow reality to follow. When you assume that the huge sum of money is already yours, something shifts immediately. You stop asking, will it happen? And start thinking, since it's done, how do I carry myself now? This shift is subtle but powerful. When something is done, you relax. You stop negotiating with doubt. You stop scanning for proof. You stop needing reassurance. You embody complete iron, and completion is magnetic. Think about how you behave when you know something is secured. If you have already signed a contract, you don't worry about whether it will be approved. If a payment is already confirmed, you don't keep refreshing the page anxiously. You move on with certainty. That is the posture you must adopt internally. Assumption creates alignment. If you assume wealth is already yours, your decisions begin to reflect that belief. You may invest differently. You may speak differently. You may decline opportunities that no longer match your standard. Not because you are reckless, but because your internal world has upgraded. This is the secret. You do not wait for money to change your behavior. You change your behavior because the money is already secured in consciousness. The outer world is delayed feedback. It echoes what you consistently assume. If you assume lack, you interpret events as confirmation of struggle. If you assume abundance, you interpret events as confirmation of progress, even if they look neutral at first. Assumption shapes perception, and perception influences action. When you assume it's already done, you are no longer emotionally dependent on immediate results. You understand that the unseen is organizing itself. You walk differently. There is a certain calmness in someone who knows. They are not frantic. They are not defensive. They are not over explaining their vision. They simply carry themselves as though the outcome is inevitable. Inevitable. That word carries power. When something feels inevitable, you stop resisting it. You accept it. You allow it. Assumption removes the gap between desire and identity. Instead of saying, I want to be wealthy, you say, I am wealthy, and this is unfolding. Notice the difference. One speaks from separation, the other speaks from unity. To assume it's done means you mentally live from the end. You see yourself after the breakthrough. You feel the relief after the deposit. You imagine the conversation where you share the good news, and then you return to your day without anxiety. The mistake people make is they assume briefly and then revert to doubt. They step into certainty for 5 minutes and then spend the rest of the day reinforcing the opposite story. Consistency is key. Assumption must become your dominant state. When doubt whispers, "What if it doesn't happen?" you gently respond, "It already has." You do not argue aggressively. You do not fight fear with force. You replace it with calm conviction. Over time, the assumption becomes natural. And once it feels natural, manifestation accelerates. Why? Because the subconscious mind does not distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and physical ones. If you repeatedly experience the feeling of already having received, your mind accepts it as reality. And once accepted, it seeks physical expression. You cannot hold a strong assumption without behavioral evidence emerging. You may notice new ideas surfacing. You may feel drawn to certain conversations. You may take bold steps that once intimidated you. These actions are not forced, they flow naturally from your new self concept. Assumption is creative power in its purest form. It declares, "I decide what is true," not in arrogance, but in authority. The world is responsive. It organizes around dominant beliefs. If your dominant belief is that wealth is already secured, circumstances begin to reflect that inner security. You stop reacting to temporary appearances. A bill arrives, you remain calm. A delay occurs, you remain steady. Because you are no longer living from what you see, you are living from what you know. And knowing is stronger than seeing. Faith is often misunderstood as blind hope, but true faith is assumption. It is the unwavering acceptance that what you desire is already accomplished in the unseen. When you embody that state, you no longer chase, you no longer beg, you no longer strive from fear. You move with composure. You speak with quiet assurance. You think from the end instead of toward it. And that shift changes everything. Large sums of money do not intimidate someone who has already accepted them internally. They feel familiar, expected, normal. Normal is powerful. When wealth becomes normal in your mind, it becomes natural in your experience. So tonight, before you sleep, assume it's done. Feel the gratitude, feel the stability, feel the expansion. Then release it. Wake up tomorrow not as someone waiting, but as someone who has already received. Because when you truly assume it's already done, reality has no choice but to catch up with your decision.